Top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. I'm sure that most of you have heard by now that Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson has been postponed as a result of an ulcer that flared up on old Mike. And now, as a result of that, they're saying that the Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano rematch is likely to be moved to, get this, Frankfurt, Germany.
What?
Katie Taylor's fight against Amanda Serrano was originally scheduled to take place in Texas on July 20th. That's next month.
Right.
It's expected to be postponed until October or November of this year and is likely to take place in Germany. They don't say why. Taylor's second meeting with Serrano following their historic bout in Madison Square Garden, May of 2022, 2 years ago, when Taylor won by split decision, was due to be the co-main event with Mike Tyson against Jake Paul at the 80,000 capacity AT&T Stadium in Arlington.
This can't be right. Why would it get moved to Germany?
What is the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight? Is that being moved to Germany? Because this is supposed to be the co-main event to that main event. When 57-year-old Tyson became unwell during a flight in the U.S. last month and was hospitalized, his fight against Paul was postponed and the entire bill thrown into doubt. A statement released by promoters MVP Most Valuable Promotions last week outlined Tyson's issues. The upcoming highly anticipated boxing match between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson will unfortunately be postponed, it said. During a follow-up consultation on Thursday with medical professionals on his recent ulcer flare-up, the recommendation is for Mike Tyson to do minimal to light training over the next few weeks and then return to full training with no limitations. Both Mike and Jake are in agreement that it is only fair to ensure that both athletes have equal training time to prepare for this important match and are able to compete at their highest level. Is this the byproduct of Jake Paul fighting a 57-year-old man, practically a senior citizen?
Well, that's one way to look at it, but then again, look at how many times Artur Beterbiev's fights have been postponed due to medical issues and medical flare-ups, and he's not 57.
Sources in the Taylor camp say the Taylor versus Serrano rematch will take place, but later this year, and likely to be in Frankfurt, Germany, and not in the United States. While there has been no official statement to say the Texas event has been postponed to stage the Taylor fight as a standalone event without the pulling power of Tyson and YouTuber Jake Paul was considered unlikely.
That doesn't make any fucking sense.
What sources are the Irish Times talking to that have them under the impression that they would remove this fight from that show, separate them, to stage Taylor versus Serrano in Germany? That doesn't cater to the Irish fans any more than it caters to the Puerto Rican ones or the American ones. And those are the markets, that's the audience most interested in seeing a rematch. Not to say that there isn't a German boxing scene or that they don't have German women boxers. They do, quite a few.
Sarah Liegman, Sophie Elish,
Nina Menke, a few years back, Christina Hammer, a few years further back, Regina Halmich. She actually made a lot of money in Germany. So it's not like there's not a German boxing scene, and it's not like Germany doesn't produce women boxers. They do, but that still doesn't explain why they would separate Taylor versus Serrano 2 from the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight when that's a packaged deal.
it's a part of the appeal.
To do it as a standalone event in Germany, on whose dollar, on whose dime?
It doesn't make sense.
Their initial meeting at New York's famed Madison Square Garden was a rousing success in every sense of the word 2 years ago in 2022. Taylor fending off a stiff challenge from Serrano, the 7-division champion from Brooklyn by way of Puerto Rico, to retain her undisputed lightweight championship. It took place in front of a sold-out crowd of approximately 19,187 fight fans, with both fighters drawing support, especially Taylor from the large Irish community in New York.
So is there a large Irish community in Germany I don't know about?
Or a Puerto Rican one, because from where I'm sitting, this makes no sense at all. A big part of the reason the girls stood to make as much money as they stood to make for this rematch, somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 million apiece, is because it was part of the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight that Netflix was bankrolling.
If you separate them and bill this as a standalone event, are they still going to get paid what they were going to get paid?
Because they're both losing a lot of time on this. Amanda, Katie, they were supposed to fight over the summer months. And now, if this rematch is happening all the way out there in October or November, they'll sit out the whole summer, the both of them.
I don't know if I can believe this.
I mean, I know that there's a German boxing scene, and there has been for many years, but it's not bubbling and vibrant enough to where the ideal location for this rematch is Frankfurt, Germany.
What?
I'm gonna have to get Amanda Serrano on the phone, and I'm gonna ask her, what the fuck is going on here?
Is this real?
Well, the Irish Times thought enough to print it, but you know what they say, don't believe everything you read.
I'm struggling to believe this.
Beterbiev has suffered, he has had 4 of his last 6 fights, including yours, including yours, have 5 separate health-related postponements. Is there a small part of you that worries that the fight may never happen?
I still believe that it will happen, of course. I want this fight so much. I know he wants also this fight. And I'm sure he will heal himself and we will have this fight.
Michelle Joy Phelps raised some valid concerns in reference to Artur Beterbiev because he is an injury-prone fighter and he has been for many years now, which begs the question, will the fight ever happen?
It was supposed to have happened this past weekend.
Former WBC champion Alexander Gvozdyk, he was asked about it
To his injuries.
by Boxing Scene, and Alexander said Beterbiev is starting to fall apart and getting injured pretty often. He's not a young guy, and it's not a joke anymore. He's almost 40 years old. He's been fighting since he got out of the crib. He's had many injuries and many wars. I think the best version of Beterbiev, who beat me, is supposed to beat Bivol, but you never know what kind of Beterbiev you're going to see, especially after his latest serious injury.
Yes.
And it is of some seriousness because it's torn meniscus. That's tantamount to a knee injury.
It's in that region.
Those close to 40-year-old legs and all the wear and tear that comes from Artur's amateur years and his years as a professional, it all seems to be catching up to him, which is why for a long time I favored Demetri Bivol to win the fight on the presupposition that by the time they did fight,
Since it was already taking so long.
Artur might be close to 40 or damn near 40. And here we are. And all of that, the growing concerns over Artur's health and his shape, that was all ahead of this weekend's fight that Demetri Bivol had with Malignaggi, who he managed to stop. And that's saying a lot because Demetri hasn't stopped somebody in years.
Before this past weekend's knockout win over Malignaggi, Demetri Bivol had not racked up a knockout in approximately 6 years. All the way back there in 2018 when he fought Sullivan Barrera.
I don't know how long it's been. This is when HBO was still in boxing, and Demetri Bivol, he wasn't even with Matchroom at that time. He was still with Kathy Duva.
That's how long it's been.
But Demetri Bivol, who was more aggressive than usual, managed to rack up a knockout this past weekend against the then unbeaten Malignaggi. And Malik, he was actually doing all right. He was holding up pretty well. But Demetri, you could tell he was switched on.
Yes.
He was sharp.
Aggressive.
He has been his last 2 fights. He was very aggressive, putting punches together with Lyndon Arthur, walking him down, and
Stalking him.
he was very aggressive this past weekend with Malignaggi, a late replacement. You saw Demetri Bivol hold his footing, maintaining his position just outside of Malignaggi's striking distance to get in and out, putting punches together. And this is what I mean.
What I meant.
That Demetri Bivol, even though he's very light on his feet, and he fights on his toes, he's not so far on the outside that he's retreating from his opponent, as outside fighters often do. No, he stays with them, just close enough that if he has to get out, he can, and just close enough that if he wants to get in,
He can do that too.
he knows his range. And because he's got some speed in those feet, some speed in those legs, and some speed in those hands, he can fluster a guy with activity.
He's not that big on power.
But he is big on counters. He is big on hitting you with punches you don't see when you don't expect it, so you don't brace yourself. And that in and of itself has an effect. It can disorient an opponent, stun an opponent.
Make them hesitant if it happens too often. After a while, they don't want to let their hands go because they don't want to get hit again.
Everybody, myself included, expected Demetri Bivol to win this fight by any means necessary. Decision, a knockout. Demetri was the safe choice. Now, he's en route to Artur.
The focus is back on Artur.
Well, next up, hopefully, the Undisputed fight. Turki Al-Sheikh is saying that maybe sometime in October we'll see the fight between you and Beterbiev.
Yeah, he told me also, and he told it in the ring for people that October 12th, he has a date for undisputed fight between me and Beterbiev. I can say only that I have to be ready for this date for my huge fight, and I will try to do all my best to be ready.
Dimitri's fought 2 times within the last 12 months. He fought this past weekend, and before that, he fought in December.
Artur was last in action in January.
January of this year, and the last time he saw action before that was in January of last year. That means there's a year in between his last 2 fights. The Yard fight in January of last year, and the Callum Smith fight in January of this one.
The Callum Smith fight was originally supposed to go down last year, but there was something about Artur suffering a botched root canal or an infection, something like that, so it got pushed into this year.
January of this year, Artur has the fight, wins the fight. He's supposed to fight Bivol afterwards, suffers a torn meniscus.
And now, October 12th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, that's the new date.
And you know, because the Saudis are really behind this fight, and when they do something, they like to do it big. I wonder what's going to be on that undercard, because they haven't disappointed us so far. Each one of these Saudi shows has literally been better than the last, and the most recent one was this weekend's Matchroom versus Queensbury show. Even without Deontay Bivol versus Artur Beterbiev, it didn't disappoint. It was great. From top to bottom, from start to finish. So I wonder who's going to be on that undercard, but I also wonder, how's Artur going to hold up?
His legs.
He's going to need them to keep up with and keep on. Deontay Bivol, put the pressure on that guy, try to pin him down and unload. He's going to need his legs.
I don't want to get my hopes up.
They're saying that it's going to be in October. They're saying that, and I hope it happens. But the amount of recovery time needed for a torn meniscus without surgery, that's 4 to 8 weeks. With surgery, that's about 3 months.
Upwards of 3 months.
So we'll see what happens. But then, like now, I favor Deontay Bivol to win the fight on the premise that he's light on his feet, he's fresher and younger than Artur Beterbiev. He's still got some speed and freshness in those legs, speed and freshness in those hands, even if he's not as strong
He's not.
a puncher as Artur Beterbiev.
He's fast enough and tricky enough that he might be able to out-hustle him.
And perhaps expose his age a bit, because he's a more nuanced fighter with more bells and whistles than a Callum Smith, than an Anthony Yard. I favor Bivol to win a decision. Finally, as it pertains to this past weekend's action, former champion Regis Progrerius said, I get on X, and I see so many people in the boxing community shitting on Deontay Wilder. Dude started late, became a heavyweight champion, made 10 defenses, is one of the biggest punchers in heavyweight history.
Based on what?
And made millions of dollars. How is that not a huge accomplishment? And those are 2 separate arguments. If you want to say that Deontay had a successful boxing career and made the most out of his limited ability, you can. I did.
It is a success story, given how late he started in the sport and how limited a boxer he is. It's a wonder that he was able to parlay that limited skill set into millions upon millions of dollars. So it is a success story.
But if people had taken shots at him on the heels of his latest defeat, well, they're just giving him his own medicine. When Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz, Deontay Wilder was among the first to react to it, and he didn't pull no punches on AJ.
He said he was never a true champion.
He said his entire career consisted of lies and contradictions.
And gifts.
He said now we know who was running from who, just to end up later admitting that he was offered more money to fight Anthony Joshua than he stood to make with Tyson Fury in their rematch, which didn't even happen right away anyway, and he turned it down. Some would call that a contradiction.
Wilder was projecting
His own inadequacies onto Anthony Joshua. But the point of it all is, Wilder's just getting a taste of his own medicine. And what's even funnier is, it's not coming from Anthony Joshua. No, Deontay Wilder never showed Anthony Joshua the grace that Anthony is showing him. Anthony's not taking shots at him.
You know when he lost to Fury back in 2020? He didn't take shots at him then. And he didn't take shots at him when he lost to him a second time.
And what was their third fight? And he didn't take shots at him last year when he lost to Joseph Parker. Didn't take shots at him this year.
Nope.
Now that he's lost to Zhilei Zhang.
So don't feel sorry for Deontay Wilder.
I don't. I'm not going to play him the violin. If people are being hard on him, it's because they're just giving him a taste of his own medicine. and nobody likes it. Wilder's fans, least of all.
I don't expect him to, because you're the bozos that put him on a pedestal.
Now, former fighter, former champion turned analyst, Paulie Malignaggi asks, where would you rank the Bronze Bomber among the all-time heavyweights?
Nowhere.
Nowhere in the top 10, I can tell you that. Nowhere in the top 15, hell. I really think about it. You're talking about Joe Louis, Lennox Lewis, Muhammad Ali,
In no particular order.
Frazier, Foreman, Liston,
Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano,
Mike Tyson, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, Larry Holmes, Vladimir Klitschko, Vitaly Klitschko.
Even now I feel like I'm missing somebody.
Like I'm missing a few names, and I know that I am. It's too much data to tabulate, but the main takeaway is I wouldn't know where to put Wilder amongst those names because he didn't have a better career than they had. And that's just a matter of fact. Wilder has no signature wins.
Unless you want to count Luis Ortiz as a signature win.
I don't, because Luis Ortiz has no signature wins. Who's the best guy that he beat? Was he ever even a champion?
No.
And even in this era, you can't say that Wilder was the number 2, number 3, or even the number 4 heavyweight of this era. You can't say that because he never unified titles like Anthony Joshua. He never became a 2-time heavyweight champion like Anthony Joshua. Didn't beat more top 10s or champions than Anthony Joshua.
He didn't.
At least right now, Usyk is number 1. Fury might be number 2, even though he might lose some ground very soon.
Fury beat Wilder.
Fury can be at number 2. Anthony Joshua might be at number 3.
2-time heavyweight unified champion.
Joseph Parker would be at number 4.
You sure?
Joseph Parker beat Deontay Wilder, remember? He beat Deontay Wilder, he beat Andy Ruiz, he just beat Zhilei Zhang.
He's at number 4.
Andy Ruiz is at number 5.
You'd put Andy Ruiz at number 5 ahead of Wilder in this era.
I would, because Andy Ruiz was at least a unified champion for a time, for a short while, and his win over Anthony Joshua is a better win than any win on Wilder's resume.
On top of his win over Luis Ortiz.
Andy Ruiz, like Deontay Wilder, beat Luis Ortiz, but Andy's win over AJ is better than any win on Wilder's resume. So I'd put Andy at number 5.
Yeesh.
I told you immediately after Wilder's second fight with Tyson Fury that he would never be a champion again, that he doesn't have what it takes, and time has proven me right. If that's harsh,
You want me to say it nicer?
doesn't stop it from being true, that when it's all said and done, he may not be in the top 5 of this era, let alone on an all-time great list.
So when a guy who said that Anthony Joshua was never a true champion suffers back-to-back losses, don't expect people to go easy on it.
Anthony's already got a better legacy than you do, and he's still adding to it while your career is over.